Good afternoon. This is a special meeting of the Griggs County Commission, May 9th at 1 p.m. Please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll move on to roll call. Stephanie Edlund.
Here.
Stephanie is attending by Zoom. Rod Zorn.
Here.
Rod is attending by phone. Scott Tranby.
Here.
Is present. Josh Averill is absent, and John Wakefield is present. We'll need approval of the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Tranby to approve the agenda as presented. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Second by Zorn. All in favor of the approval of the agenda signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Agenda approved. The single agenda item is Sheriff Beaver's resignation letter and other issues dealing with that resignation as we move forward with the Sheriff's Department. At this time, everybody has a copy of the resignation letter in front of them, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So at this time, I'll need a motion to move Beaver's resignation letter into the public record.
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Edlund to move Sheriff Beaver's resignation letter into the public record. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Second by Zorn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Resignation accepted. Now, we have some questions, of course, and we have some unanswered questions. The first thing we need to do is we need to have a motion to allow for the advertising for a replacement, two replacement law enforcement officers to fill the interim between the time Sheriff Beaver departs, which is the 16th of May, and the election on November, although that time in place could vary depending on circumstances, but we do need to advertise now.
Yeah. I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Tranby allowing Griggs County and anybody within the management of the county to move forward and advertise for the sheriff's position. Is there a second? Temporary sheriff's position. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Second by Zorn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Any other concerns that any of you have as far as how we're going to move forward? This is not uncharted waters, but it doesn't happen very often. I think the state's attorney is here that can probably answer some of the questions on what our options are and how we need to conduct this whole process.
I guess I have a little bit of guidance. I think that this probably in the next few days probably won't be our last meeting. I think that we should look at trying to find someone to fill the position. I actually just spoke with Tyler, our deputy RISPA, in my office. I think he's fully licensed as a law enforcement officer now. I don't know if you have any interest in filling the position. I've spoken with a couple of law enforcement officers with significant experience. Of course, and they're still employed, so I'm not going to mention any names, but of course their concern was compensation because they don't want to leave someplace and be downgraded in compensation. So I guess that's one of the questions that I have for the commission is what is the commission looking at as far as is compensation? Is it something that's open to negotiation with any candidates? Is there any room for compensation to move towards a higher scale? And how, I guess, in advertising, what does the commission want in that?
We're at 65,000, is that correct?
Yeah, and with all and the benefits
With benefits, yeah, that's what I'm
and
saying.
everything else. So wouldn't that be dependent on experience? And
I think so. And I think maybe
And
we could advertise that and maybe in an application ask for what their salary range would be or the requirements of the salaries.
And then it would also be based on whether or not this is strictly a part-time position or if they have any,
Just that would be full-time.
Correct.
Or run for election, in other words.
right.
Correct.
So I guess it would be based on our interviews with prospective candidates, I would think, realizing that obviously there probably are gonna have to be some concessions and there's probably gonna have to be some salary increases. Either way we do this, whether we're operating with part-time hourly employees or with a salaried employee on a part-time basis, I don't think we can expect to not pay more than what we have been paying. I think that goes without saying.
Your budget is 68,640.
Yeah. And then they pay a full 15% of that is paid into the
Purse.
state retirement
Correct,
purse, and
correct.
there's
Employee
Yeah.
And I think
contribution.
Griggs County is part of the public safety retirement. I think the sheriff's
Yeah,
office.
also,
pays for that,
yeah.
right?
Yep.
There's been a question raised on eligibility for the person filling this temporary role. And what is the training requirement? There are a number of people that might fit the training requirement but have let it lapse, have been through the training at one time and now it's not up to date. Of course, what are the requirements? Can we take a citizen with no law enforcement and move them into the position? Or does it
I believe the
require a
law
fully trained
allows
person?
for someone that's appointed or elected to have up to a year to participate and be trained in the academy and pass the required testing and become a licensed peace officer.
But until they reach that point, are they able to carry a weapon to defend themselves?
So they're given a provisional license, and I'm not sure. I'll have to do some research on that as far as if they're able to carry a firearm or not. They can, I believe, with the appropriate background check, at least be licensed provisionally from post.
Captain, you wouldn't happen to be in that board, the training board for this, and offer some insight?
I am not on the training board. I know that any law enforcement officer, and you know, obviously with the sheriff's department, it's a little bit different because you can be appointed or elected, right? And the state's attorney is correct that they have a year to get that formal training done because they have to become licensed in North Dakota, which whether you go to Devil's Lake to the academy there, or our training academy, or one of the other training academies that are in North Dakota, it's about a 12-week process to get that basic law enforcement post license. I believe even with provincial licenses or whatever they're called, right, temporary license, whatever that is, there is a qualification shoots that they have to go through for any weapons that they're going to carry. So, you know, if they're going to just carry a handgun, they'd have to have a qualification shoot for that, identifying that they are qualified to carry that specific weapon and are proficient in the use of that. If they're going to carry a shotgun, same thing. A rifle would be the same.
Okay.
And that would I think that proof has to be provided prior to them receiving a provincial license or temporary license.
So the overall answer is it really depends on the qualifications of the applicant, on what training ultimately they have when they start.
Yep,
Okay.
I would say so. My suggestion is to find someone that's a licensed peace officer. I think that makes this transition a lot easier.
Yeah.
With that said, that's probably going to cost the county more money, but we're going to have money into paying to have a person trained as well. So I think it's probably a good trade-off.
So that brings up another question concerning when we no longer have a sheriff appointed to the position, who then becomes, we're moving into the budget season here, who then becomes in charge of the sheriff's budget?
Well, I would hope that we have someone. I think that's a question that we look at when we get closer to that, and we're not that far away from it. But who knows, we could have the position filled in a week or 2 weeks.
Understood, but I mean, so is the position being filled, are they being appointed to be the sheriff, or are they being appointed to provide law enforcement until the time of the election? There's a difference in that.
Well, I think ultimately you'd be appointing someone to, like, moving forward to the unfulfilled or unexpired terms, they would take the role of the sheriff and the duties of the sheriff.
Even if that person has no desire to go on and actually be the sheriff.
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, it'd be no different than a lame duck sheriff that wasn't running in a re-election. They still hold the powers to budget and control for the sheriff's department with ratification of the sheriff. So I don't think it'd be any different than a lame duck that's not running for re-election.
Okay.
Jamie's thing is try to find somebody's license if we can, at least to fulfill it for a little while, you know. That's, you know, my opinion on that, so.
Well, I
We
mean, you can't exclude anybody for
No, I
this
know that.
very sake that we don't have anybody.
That's what I'm saying, but you follow my line of thought, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Well, it'd be just like any other job. I mean, you have preferred qualifications, and that would be a preferred qualification.
You take the most, I'm gonna take the most qualified person you have, hopefully, you know, if you can.
Yeah, it's a graduated scale. I mean, if you have someone that has no qualifications whatsoever, they wouldn't be in the same level with somebody that is qualified, but that's all. There is no rankings or scale in the century code that it basically leaves it open to any citizen that is a qualified elector of Griggs County.
The only thing is over 18 is no word qualification.
There's a few
And
other
they have to
there's a
be-
few, yeah.
They have to be an elector of the county, so they have to be a resident of the county.
Yeah.
Now, residence is, as we've seen, is whatever it takes to be resident, pretty much. I mean, residence is that you're supposed to have you declared as your residence and mailing address and
Yep.
someplace to lay your head down at night.
Yeah.
But you don't even necessarily have to do that. It's declared residence is what it amounts to. So, anything else?
No, I will work with Sam to get an ad together so it gets out on our county webpage and Association of Counties and wherever it needs to go to be done as quickly as possible.
Anything from your side of this?
No,
Kelly? Paul,
same concerns.
from the city's side?
It's interesting to see what's gonna happen after the 16th, I guess, is why I was here, in the city.
Well, I think it's in the best interest of the commission, but in the best interest of the citizens to find someone to replace the position as quick as possible and act as quick as possible. I don't think we want people to know that there's a potential to not have a sheriff's department in Griggs County.
I think ultimately the replacement will come because of word of mouth, and probably somebody locally rather than recruiting somebody, but I might be wrong on that. All we can do is get the word out there and see what transpires. So that brings up the final question in my mind: what happens if no one is found and no one is eligible?
That's uncharted territory. We're going to be without a sheriff for a while, I guess, until we find someone.
Isn't it by century code that it would go to the coroner?
That's right,
Cushman.
you know.
Yeah, I think you're right.
You're right,
Yeah. Yeah, I think you are right, Sam. That's a succession.
Any input on that, Captain? Has there been something in the state where there's been a vacancy that hasn't been filled? I believe there has been. I can't name which one it was, but I think I've remembered where complete departments have quit
We had, in Wells County, when the sheriff there was criminally charged and was removed from office, there was no deputies or sheriff from Wells County for a short amount of time. I don't remember how long that was, but there was a period. And I know, I want to say it was the state's attorney or the auditor's office reached out to the surrounding sheriff's departments and the highway patrol to help provide coverage in Wells County during that interim period until they were able to appoint a sheriff and then, grow their department. So when you're not, I guess, in uncharted territories, because it has happened before,
Yeah.
and that was probably, I'm trying to think when that was, it's probably 5-6 years ago,
Yeah.
something like that. And I don't know what that looks like when it comes to like jurisdiction for, let's say, Foster, Barnes, Nelson, Steele County coming over here and assisting, if they have to be sworn in as deputies in Griggs County to be able to provide that service.
I would
As
think
state
so.
troopers, we have statewide jurisdiction, and if we're asked to do that, there's no swearing in process for troopers to come in and assist. But I don't know what that looks like for a surrounding sheriff's department.
I think years ago, I remember the same circumstance somewhere out in the far southwestern counties that had the same circumstance.
And we have had some relationships with neighboring sheriff's departments. I don't know if they're in the same position that they were, but we can reach out to them in anticipation of next week.
Mhm.
So,
In an extreme situation, does the state have any officers that could be assigned on a temporary basis?
If there's a request, so one of the difficult parts for the state highway patrol is that we have primary jurisdiction on state property, state-owned leased property, and then any public roadway. So when we talk about private, any private land, any private homes, things like that, we do have jurisdiction if there's an emergency that's ongoing and or been requested by the local law enforcement agency. So let's say a burglary happened at a residence someplace in Griggs County. Unless we're requested to go take care of that, we don't necessarily have jurisdiction because of the limitations that we have in law. Unless it's ongoing and there's an emergency, then we can respond. So we just need to be asked, and then we can assign troopers to work in the area. But just knowing that it's probably not gonna be 24-hour coverage or
Correct.
even 12 hours a day. We would have somebody always available to respond, just not maybe a presence all the time.
sure.
And maybe you don't have the ability to answer the question, but does the same hold true for the BCI?
So the BCI is governed by the AG's office, and I don't know what their jurisdiction is when it comes to that stuff. So obviously the AG is an elected official, so the BCI is underneath his authority. Our boss ultimately is the governor. We're an executive branch agency, so we operate just a little bit differently.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how that would work for them.
So my basic understanding of the AG's office is typically they assist in investigations upon the request of a sheriff's department or a state's attorney's office. So I don't think that they would be here to specifically be law enforcement unless they were requested for an investigation. But I don't think as far as routine patrol or something like that, they wouldn't be available, I don't believe.
Mm-hmm.
John, could I ask, Captain, if we end up in this situation, how does that look for assistance with master calendar or any restraining order hearings, things like that? Have they assisted with that?
We've assisted in court processes in the past. Again, it just has to be a request, and we can assist, just as, if there's a request. Yep.
Obviously, that's kind of my biggest concern is having that presence at court.
How is your staffing? Are you short too?
So as an agency, we are currently 11 members short out of 171 statewide. Within our region, we are short a couple troopers out of the Jamestown location, Jamestown and Valley City. But it's, we have a trooper in Northwood, we have troopers in Larimore, Hillsborough, Valley City, Carrington, Jamestown, Fargo. So we have troopers
Within
a certain time. Yeah. And what we did in Wells County was we were specifically requested to assist, and we assigned troopers to work certain days that the other sheriff's departments couldn't help out. Maybe didn't have the staffing, and we had troopers that were working in that area. We could just dust off some of those plans if that's a request that's made. and I don't know the staffing, you know, Foster County, I think, is trying to hire, right? I think Nelson County's trying to hire a deputy. I think Steele County's pretty fully staffed over there, Barnes County as well. You know, but seems like almost a lot of agencies in North Dakota are hiring.
Mhm.
That's the difficult part. We're all kind of robbing from each other.
Anything else, Jamie?
Not for me.
Scott? Any of the rest of the commissioners have any questions?
I got a
I don't
question.
have any at this time.
I got a question coming to with going into with the money. Excuse me, with what we're doing. You know, we're going to be hiring probably some deputies to come in and patrol and stuff. You know, and with due to the budget to what we got for that. You know, we voted here 2 months ago or whatever to let Sheriff Beaver take the money that was supposed to be for a deputy, $60,000, and to buy body cams and tasers. I'm wondering if it would be wise, if we can stop it. I don't know if we can, but can we divert that money back?
I think it's already spent, Rod. I think it's already coming, right, Stan?
You guys paid the one payment at the last meeting,
Yeah.
so I don't know how that works to stop that. I'm not sure.
Is it something that we could look into? Because right now we don't even have a sheriff to wear the body cam, and you know, I think we could use the money in the budget to help pay for this instead of a camera.
I can do some checking on that. Talk to Mike and see get some contact information.
I mean, I think the argument at the time that transfer was done was just that very fact, that a living, breathing officer was more important than equipment. If you had to choose between one or the other, that was a losing argument, but I think that was what we're back to now. Is yes, it would be nice to have both, but if it's a money consideration, the money would be far better spent on an officer than on the body cams.
But in the other term of it, John, you know, eventually you're gonna need that equipment eventually anyway. You know, we do it full staff on board.
Depending on the sheriff and
Correct.
his
Yes.
requests. So that isn't necessarily a given.
You follow my point.
That is whatever the sheriff deems necessary to run his department. So that's certainly a bridge that could be crossed later on. The bridge that we have to cross right now is we need bodies in here to do this, and the money would be far better spent in that area than in equipment that we don't even know is going to be needed by the next sheriff. So Jamie, you're going to check into that. We don't even know if the full payments have been made, Sam, or if it's a partial payment.
I'm not sure on that one.
Sam, could you send me a copy of that invoice?
Yeah.
I'll try to contact them today.
Yep.
And whatever, and I mean, even if there's a price to be paid for restocking or whatever it might be, that still might be a benefit as far as moving forward here. If we could fund 2 officers with a salary of 3, we might be able to accommodate the increase fairly easily. Pending no other business, I'll ask for
Motion to adjourn?
a motion to adjourn. Is that a motion to adjourn by Tranby?
Yep.
I'll second that.
Second by Zorn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned, 1:24. Next meeting, this room, May 20th at 9:30 a.m. I thank you all.